Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey guys, I am just extraordinarily unhappy about the news of the death of Franco Harris. You know how sometimes you hear out of the blue somebody tells you something and it's something you can't take in initially. And when I saw it, I was just scrolling through my phone. And when I saw it, it was from a absolutely reliable news source. And I refused. I couldn't. I pushed back. I said, impossible. I guess you never know what unexpected news, what your reaction will be, and who can say? I mean, I'm not a big, I guess my reaction is because I knew him. Our paths crossed many times by virtue of, just being Pittsburgh public people. And I must say that he was just the nicest man, gentle man. You just loved him. You felt immediately comfortable around him. And here he was, this big, celebrity, huge. Never carried it like that. Never. Just a guy. Quick to smile. Quick to come to people's help and aid. Quick to lend his celebrity to good causes. Never asking anything in return. Just a good guy. And I guess the reason I'm just struggling is that what? I mean, this is one of those things where those of us who have great doubts that there is a God who pays attention to things, that if there is a God, this was a God who pulled the rug out from under a wonderful man's feet just days before he was to be celebrated. And he deserved celebration. I don't think you could, if you tried to find one person who could say a bad word about this man. Can you imagine a legacy like that? And remember, I haven't said anything about football. I'm talking about a man. I mean, he was giving interviews all week because of this 50th anniversary coming up. They were finally going to retire his number. And he gets taken. Yeah, well, God works in mysterious ways. I have no no explanation for why this hit me as it did, but it really did. It was like literally a sucker punch. And I've just been stumbling around all morning. I can't even get my head on right. He was, what the hell happened? At least he wasn't in decline. He was, oh my God, damn, the things we do to help ourselves deal with this mortality thing. People being plucked. I really, I don't know what to say other than I'm just in a state of shock and grief for such a nice guy who was just a few days away from such a wonderful celebration. It just seems so cruel. Man. Well, I'm sure, there's going to be so much written about him, and there's nothing I have said that will be much different. Stories will be told of his generosity, his kindness, his humility, his just nice guy. I'm sure that he served as a great mentor and exemplar for so many young players. The fact that he stayed here, that he made this, his town, it was a perfect fit. A lot of times our heroes, our sports heroes, are that because of their athletic prowess, their extraordinary athletic achievement. But ultimately, that is not what makes Franco Harris a great man. I'm startled at my at how strong this feeling is, and I suspect, frankly, that it's because I've been, I don't know, I have felt so sort of beleaguered and isolated myself for the last month, and contemplating mortality and things like that. And I guess, who knows? I don't know. Having trouble. Okay, I'm going to let it go. Feel free to share your thoughts. He was out and around so much that I got a feeling that so many of you crossed paths with him too, right? You didn't have to be, at a event where, local celebs have to show, but he was just everywhere. I have this vague memory of so long ago of doing a story on his little boy at the time. Later served on a board of directors with that little boy. That little boy, so cute. He might have been like 4 or 5, and I swear to God, I cannot remember what the story was, but it was centered on Franco's little kid. And maybe I'll come across it at some point. I don't know. My heart goes out to his family. Beautiful family. So try to just move on here, guys. Hey, Saturday, speaking of Saturday and that game, and now this funereal aspect imposed upon it, it's also, as we've been told, shaping up to be the coldest game ever played in Pittsburgh. And as a survivor of, I think, the coldest game ever played, that would be 1967 Ice Bowl in Lambeau Field. I got to tell you, it's dangerous for some people. Although, I mean, I have little doubt that I suffered lasting injuries from being at that game. I think I've told you this. I can't prove it, but when that game ended and I had to get up and walk down the steps, I had an experience that I hope to never have again. And I literally could not feel my legs. If you think about it, when you walk, you're very aware of your legs. They move, they bend, they're there. They send messages back to you. And my legs were like 2 blocks of ice. I was standing on them, but I had no connection to them. And it wasn't just my legs. My hands were frozen solid. I was frozen. And walking down those steps, I can't remember who I was hanging on to, but I had to have been hanging on to somebody. And I mean, obviously, the place was packed. Will not be the case at the called Acrisure on Saturday, but the place was packed so that couldn't have fallen far, I guess. And I sure as hell couldn't have been alone. But to this day, my feet and my hands freeze very quickly. I mean, I can have gloves on, mittens on, and if it's cold, they just freeze up. I think I know I damaged them. But back then, 67, we didn't have the kind of fabrics and clothes that people have now. So if I were to go to that game Saturday night, I could go and make my way through it in comfort because we got all this stuff now. We didn't have down. We didn't have anything. I was wearing, like layers of wool. Probably some long underwear and a pair of pants, a few pairs of socks. And I can't remember what the temperature was. The temperature was like 10 below or 12 below. Not the wind chill. The wind chill, who the hell knows what the hell it was. But, man. So it's not going to be quite that cold, but it's going to be more than cold enough. And thank God now you really could bundle up in a way that you wouldn't be able to sit out there and watch that game and not freeze. We got these hand warmer things you can stick in your feet and your hands. Jeez. I suppose it's part of the reason we're just all softer than we used to be. I don't know. God. Well, I understand that in about 45 minutes, there'll be a ribbon cutting at the Fern Hallow Bridge, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to open up, not today. I don't know why you do a ribbon cutting and then you don't open it, but they're doing a ribbon cutting. and tell us in the next few days we'll be able to drive on it. I must admit, I feel nervous. Isn't that ridiculous? Living close to it, it had a major impact on the way I get around my neighborhood, and it'll be great to have that back, because it was definitely inconvenient, it being gone. But I understand when they open it, it'll only just be one lane in both directions. They don't quite have it all together. I mean, structurally, it must be all together. I don't quite understand what's going on. But so they pulled it off, did it in less than a year, which is pretty amazing. And that's the good news. That's about it. I don't have any more. That'd be it. Oh, the other good news for me is I feel like I'm turning a corner. My health. I feel like I'm getting better. My air feels better, and I'm not wheezing as much. And thank God, man. I there were times when I doubted that I would ever feel right again. So that's some other, I guess, good news. But given that, there was a piece in the Times today that just blows my mind, and it's about the fact that most Americans, most at risk of serious illness from COVID and or death, have not gotten the bivalent booster, which was designed to, help with the strain that's out there taking so many of us down. Now, again, there's so much we've learned about human nature and how the whole idea of like being a living being is right. The drive to survive is the biggest motivator of our actions. That's what I always thought. And yet it's clear that people actually make choices that are not in their best interest in terms of something as basic as their survival. And I know that some people would say, you're full of it. Look, you have gotten every vaccine as soon as you could. You're as vaccinated as a person could be. You masked. You did everything they told you to do. You got this new fancy-dancy booster thing. And you got it. So why the hell should I? And see, I think that's where look, here's all I'm going to say. I am going to say that is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is, if I had not had this booster shot, I might well have been hospitalized, intubated, and died. That what they say about these boosters is they don't necessarily, sort of like flu shots, they don't necessarily prevent you from getting it, but they can lessen the odds that you will get very, very ill and or die. Why would someone not take that and run with it? But it's beyond me. And the thing is that we know now, they've been trying to get this in our heads, that the people who are dying from COVID, and they're dying from COVID, are old. Now, that's the demographic. And old is defined as people over sometimes 65, sometimes over 70, okay? But the stats, as much as they exist now, say that if you're over 70, you have a 4 times greater risk of ending up seriously ill and hospitalized. So knowing that you're in a, why would you not make use of every tool that they're throwing out there that might give you a better outcome if you were to, unfortunately, contract this disease? The most recent death counts by age showed that 90% of all COVID fatalities are now people over 65 years old. So if you're over 65, which I God knows am, why would you not arm yourself in every way that you could? And for people who got their shots way back when this started, the immunity you receive from it is pretty much gone. Not to mention it doesn't have much going for it with this new strain. I'll just leave you with one other factoid here. Epidemiologists agree that the number one thing of a national response, the pillar, the base of any national response to a pandemic like this, is widespread vaccination. That has the biggest payback. And they're able to estimate that the fact that so many of us did initially get COVID vaccinations, that action of ours, that self-preservation action of ours, probably prevented easily 300,000 deaths just last year among people over 65. 300,000. You can't imagine that, so just think of your grandmother. Think of one. What I used to do to get my head around numbers like that is I think of Lambeau Field, the biggest venue I knew, and I'd fill it up. Be like what I think it was 50-some thousand people in it. I'd fill it up, and I'd imagine them all being wiped out. I'd fill it up again, wipe them out, fill it up, wipe them out, fill it up, wipe them out, and that to get a sense of that much humanity gone for no good reason when there was something that could have saved them. So, I just gotta tell you, it's still there. And with people getting together for the holidays, that's how I got it. Geez, guys, be careful. Please be careful. Be smart. I mean, be what any organism, organisms with not one bit of the brain function that a human has is probably more inclined to do the right thing to keep themselves alive than most of the humans in this country. It's just beyond belief. The stupidity of people. The stubborn refusal to deal with reality. Damn it. Gigi writes, absolutely stunned by the news of Franco's passing. Yeah. I think every Pittsburgher has memories of meeting and or seeing him out and about. He was one of the good guys. He's going to be missed by many. Unbelievable that his death comes right before the 50th anniversary for the Immaculate. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just, man, cruel. Cruel and unusual. Unconstitutional to take him now. Sorry. Okay, what do I have here? I feel like I don't have a lot. I'm sorry. I'm just. Oh, speaking of germs, I just wanted to get. Just a case in point. But one of the places that I don't know. Are you still like, you go to the grocery store and then because you're herded into doing work that other people used to do, you do the self checkout. And in doing the self checkout, you're pushing buttons, you're touching stuff, you're right. As researchers started looking at, where is the place with the most germs, the nastiest kind of germs that you could pick up. I got news for you. Supermarket self-service checkouts. You'd be better off, running your hands lovingly over a public toilet stall. Just saying. So having said that, I hope you're all like, after you do that, are you still like, maybe putting some of that, antiseptic stuff on your hands and trying to get, Jesus. Checkout screens have one of the highest bacterial loads of the kinds of bugs known to cause disease. I'm trying to keep you guys alive. Are you listening? Please. I hope you are. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry I'm in such a state, and I am in a state. I have something I want to share with you, which will not make you happier. But why the hell should you be happy when I'm so miserable, huh? This startled me, actually, and I always think that I'm sort of tuned in. I know what's going on. Well, this sent me off into directions I hadn't gone, and left me in even a more disquieted state than I had been in. And it's about our Supreme Court. Now, we know the Supreme Court, one of the things that the Republicans and Donald Trump did, very with their, willingness to use raw power. Precedent be damned, stealing seats, not allowing a sitting president to put his choice for the court on the court. I mean, the kind of unbelievable, unprecedented hardball tactics employed by this repulsive Republican Party. And the one thing they were extraordinarily successful in was, of course, taking over the Supreme Court. And it's a court now that is more ideological than we've ever seen, less judicious, clearly more politicized. And therein is danger enough. But a number of, legal scholars have been watching this court, the so-called Roberts Court, and looking at what it has done, looking at the way it has done what it's done, and have found this court to be unlike any in our history in its clear intention to amass power to itself. Now, let me back this up for you. This was, I refer you to this piece by Adam Liptak, New York Times. It starts with what we all know. We all know this court has, really done a big right turn. But it's much more than that. And he says that a lot of the current legal scholarship about this court shows that it is distinctive in a way we have never seen before, which, as I earlier said, that it is clearly and rapidly accumulating power at the expense of every other part of our government. And how can it do that? Well, it can because it's the Supreme effing Court. So it takes cases that then allow it to decide that, well, no, that is not the purview of the executive. That is not the purview of the legislature. That is not the purview of this, that, or the other. This seems to be our purview. There was a piece recently in the Harvard Law Review called The Imperial Supreme Court. And this is part of what it says. The court has not been favoring one branch of government over another, or favoring states over the federal government, or favoring the rights of people over governments. Instead, it is withdrawing power from all of them. Withdrawing power from the people, from the federal government, executive and legislative branches. Taking power. It is a court that is consolidating its power, systematically undercutting any branch of government, federal or state or local, that might in any way threaten its power, while at the same time undercutting individual rights. And if you look at what this court has done, that critique holds up. There's other people who have been looking at it and say, wow. With case after case, there are increasingly frequent indications that the court is establishing a position of judicial supremacy over the president and over Congress. And what they say here is that if you're a historical legal scholar, you would say that in the past, when the Supreme Court would find on behalf of the executive branch, they would do it with a kind of humility. they would say, this is not up to us to decide. This is an executive function. That is the president's purview. But this court, And here's the other thing, and you might have noticed this. This court doesn't trust other federal courts beneath it. So if a lower federal court comes up with something, this court has, and I've noticed this and thought, wait, I thought you're supposed to go from this one to that one to that one to this one, and then in the end you end up at the Supreme Court. This court has grabbed cases out of much lower territory and brought it up to itself. It has made a habit of hearing cases before the federal appeals courts have even ruled on them. Now, this is one of those things you've heard. It's one of those Latin terms. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Certiorari. That's what it's called. When they pull a case before even the lower court has ruled. This used to be something rare. It was reserved for, it was used when Nixon refused to turn over the tape recordings to a special prosecutor, or it was used when President Truman seized the steel industry. Rarely used, but when action is required quickly, the court would grab a case and shorten the usual process. This court has used this 19 times in the last 3 years. Unheard of. Unheard of. And this Supreme Court has been using another kind of shortcut in the furtherance of consolidating its power. They have increasingly been setting aside legally significant decisions from lower courts as if they never happened. They are literally ignoring cases that have been decided in a way they didn't like. In doing that, they're invalidating them in these sort of brief, unsigned procedural orders, which they do not have to answer to anybody about. Now, I want to say this. I'm reading this stuff, and my blood's running cold. The threat to our democracy, which it remains very real, we have been focusing on elective office, right? Legislatures, Congress, presidents. We have not been subjecting the judiciary, one of the three branches, to the same kind of scrutiny. And it is, to me, it is reminiscent of what happened in Hungary. One of the ways a neo-fascist like Viktor Orban, the be-all and end-all to the Republicans here, one of the ways you consolidate power is you take the courts. The first is like step one. And it is what Orban did. And it is the playbook that the Republican Party, the neo-fascist party in this country, has been using. And this court is, I'm beginning to think, a clear and present danger to our democracy. And because there's nothing higher than it, right? Nothing. How do you fight this? Now you got the few like Elena Kagan on the court who, in a dissent, I mean, they're dissenting left, right, and center and throwing out warnings, and I mean, she's using words like frightening about the so-called the kind of judicial reasoning of this Roberts court. It's really not the Roberts court; it's the Alito Thomas court. Frightening. So, I just wanted to say, I read this, and it made me very anxious, and I doubt that I will forget this. Or should I? And I wanted to pass it on to you so that more and more of us stop being, clueless about the very, very real threat posed to our democracy by this Alito Kavanaugh Thomas court. These are not people who believe in democracy. They're authoritarian. They're Christian nationalists as well. I know a lot of people think, hey, we dodged a bullet. There wasn't a red wave. We haven't died. Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. We're still standing. But anybody who lets down their guard now is part of the problem. I came upon this apropos of, yesterday I think I said something about, or the day before, about how the idiotic Post-Gazette scab paper. Hey, by the way, those reporters, the people you used to rely on for news, those reporters have now been on strike for over 3 months. And that is the longest media strike in the United States. There have been a number of strikes. None have gone this long. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who didn't walk out, and they're keeping the paper alive. They're all scabs, if you ask me. I've lost anybody whose byline I see now in the Post-Gazette is dead to me. And I want you to know that there are people who are refusing to cross the picket line by refusing to talk to these scab reporters. And that includes the mayor. Mayor Gainey has stated he will not give any interviews to the Post-Gazette, because why would he aid and abet this paper? He is quite willing to speak to the reporters out on strike, who, by the way, are putting out, they're still doing their jobs. Not getting paid, they're doing their jobs. And it's called, by the way, the PUP News, PUP News. Look it up. You can subscribe to it. It is a way of helping them. And any way that we can help them, we have to. I believe, I think I mentioned that one of the reasons the PG endorsed, what's his name? Oz. Remember that? Endorsed Oz over Fetterman was Fetterman refused to talk to the editorial board. And so they endorsed Oz. Contract talks had broken off. There's no movement forward. And I think it looks bleak. And the bleakness is not just for these good journalists and the fate of the paper. The bleakness is for all of us, because a community ceases to be much of a community if it does not have a community newspaper. So I just wanted you to be more aware of that, and in any way you can to be helpful. Chuck writes, I have been saying for weeks now that I refuse to allow a Steeler game to invade the solemnity, the quiet of my Christmas Eve. The one day of the year where I truly bask in my favorite sounds, tastes, and family. But now, how can I not tune into this game? I am just crushed today at hearing this news of Franco. Yeah, I was just looking at my phone. My brother just texted, Franco Harris died. Yeah, Bill. People who were never Steeler fans were still Franco Harris fans. How could you not be? Damn it. You know what would be a tribute? If Acrisure Stadium was packed to the gills in this coldest game ever. As a tribute. I must say I have little faith that that will be the case. It'd be nice if somebody tried to pull that off. If people, don't want to go out there and be cold, then give your tickets to somebody willing to do it. That'd be special. So anyway, I think I waylaid myself here, as is often the case. I was talking about how the Post-Gazette did this absolutely extraordinarily head-turning, bizarro story in the Sunday paper about crime in downtown Pittsburgh, which, according to the story, if you read it, was actually down And it's just a bunch of scared suburban dwelling restaurant owners and others who are overreacting, freaking out, and saying, it doesn't matter if it's down, it's a perception. And it doesn't matter if more people are coming down and eating at our restaurants. So, in other words, it's a totally bogus, made-up story designed to continue to spread this absolutely erroneous perception. And when it comes to crime, that is what Republicans do. They're never to be trusted on the subject. In fact, I think they love crime. They love it. They ride it. It helps them. It is, man, they go to bed with it and cuddle. So I came upon this, which I wanted to share with you. A guy named Radley Balko wrote, it's an item of faith among conservatives that crime has risen because progressive cities defunded the police. Well, as so much that conservatives take on faith, it's hooey. It is not a factual. There were a tiny handful of cities that reduced their police budgets in any way after the Black Lives Matter protest. In fact, by far, most cities increased funding for cops. This kind of fact is easily garnered by looking at city budgets, right? That have to be public record. But conservatives and Republicans don't give a hoot about facts. They're into perceptions and scaring the shit out of people. And so the fact that in many cities people feel less safe because they buy into this baloney that somehow police budgets have been cut and the criminals are somehow running loose. And you know what's fascinating? If you look at statistics for cities that throw more money at the cops and cities that try to, pull back a little bit. So cities who add cops, cities who have fewer cops, there is next to no difference in the trends of rising or falling crime. Having more cops has a downside because it creates more interactions, often negative, with civilians, more distrust in minority communities. And I don't know. You know what I'm sick of? I'm sick of the stupidity. There's just too many stupid people. What are we going to do about all these stupid people? People who cannot be bothered with facts or complexity. People who can't even handle this or that, black or white. That's too much. That gives me a choice. I can't handle a choice. Okay, tell me what I think. I'm so sick of it. Surrounded by nincompoops. And speaking of crime, one of the more disheartening things I've seen is that our district attorney, Stephen Zappala, is running again for a 7th term. Let me tell you, He is such a part of the problem with criminal justice in this city. It is mind-blowing. We have got to get this guy out. What is it? Again, the stupidity of people. I was a pallet. You've been there forever. Oh, yeah, sure, it's a pallet. He's an autocratic, privileged, pays no attention to anybody, does what he wants, doesn't have much empathy in his being. And he needs to go. And as far as I know, there's nobody running against him. And because he's who he is with the name he has, why don't we get to have a choice of a more progressive district attorney? We keep hearing the progressives are coming on pretty strong here in Pittsburgh, PA. Summer Lee in Amarato, all these incredible women. Why can't we get rid of Stephen Zappala? I'm sorry. Really? I've exhausted myself. Stupid. Okay, listen, guys, I've exhausted myself. I'm giving up. I have something here, but it's only, I got, 2 minutes left. I'm not going to do it. I'm done. I'm pissed. I'm done. It goes bad. I can't believe it. Jesus, man. Okay. Well, I think that's it for me. And I guess all I want to say is be careful. Be careful. Be smart. Be kind. And I'm out of here.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.